Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom. With Jay Wise, I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. As a reminder, we're on all your favorite podcast platforms. We're also on YouTube. If you're more of a visual type of person, all the clips will be available. I'm here with Jay Wise today, who's working remotely and replacing one Nathan Drinkard. Our poor man has got the vid. He's up there battling it. Snowstorms, vid. I mean, Drink just can't catch a break, Jay, can he?
Well, just to be clear, so we don't get thrown off the internet for spreading misinformation.
Right.
I don't know if I think he got tested today. I don't think he told us if he's got it or not, but the clan up there has it. So more hard times for Drink. Hopefully we get him back at full strength here. And as you know, I'm just on the road here lately, living out of a suitcase. So definitely some difficult times, but we appreciate you stepping in as usual.
Well, I'm glad I could. And we are going to get to it today. Episode 34 is going to be a complete recap of what is some people are calling the greatest playoff weekend in NFL history. We're going to get to the NFC side of things and Bengals Titans.
Yeah, but we'll begin with what was the final game of perhaps the greatest weekend of football I've ever seen, where the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Bills 42-36 in overtime. The game got really crazy in the final 2 minutes. You had 4 lead changes on a tie. It was just got absolutely ridiculous in the under 2 minutes to go. Patrick Mahomes ended up throwing for 378, 3 touchdowns. Also had a rushing touchdown. Josh Allen had 4 touchdowns, all to Gabriel Davis, and that's a postseason record for touchdown receptions in a game. Cody, let's start right here. What did you make of this game? And any thoughts on the overtime rules, which are, of course, at center stage because, of course, they are?
Well, yeah, the overtime debate has obviously been a big topic. On that subject, we'll start there because that is probably the biggest thing on most people's mind now is, we got to change the rule. I mean, I get it. It really sucked in that game that Josh Allen didn't get a chance to touch the football. It's a bit of a prisoner in the moment thing, though, I think, because you do have a game like, say, in these other games over the weekend. I mean, we're going to get to them all, but some of these more lower scoring games, your Niners-Packers game or your Bengals-Titans game, those weren't offensive shootouts, right? You wouldn't have said, I can't believe Ryan Tannehill didn't get a chance to touch the ball if that goes to overtime and Joe Burrow drives down the field, right? You wouldn't have been sitting there just, and I'm picking on him, but you could insert whatever quarterback you want some of those other games, right? I mean, Rams-Bucks may have been a little more like that, but this game, the way it ended, so much enunciated and pronounced like that thing, because in this game it felt like a robbery, but other people are going to say, listen, football's both sides. The Chiefs got the ball 25-yard line like everyone else does most every possession, and they just walk down the field. So get a stop, or hey, here's one, don't let them drive down the field with 13 seconds left, and this won't be a problem to begin with. On that subject overall, I do think that NFL should at least look at it. I don't think it's right to use the same overtime system that you use in the regular season in the postseason if there's no ties. Like, if you're going to have like different rules, if overtime can't end in a tie, then why not make it something more, maybe not sudden death, a little more like what college does or something like that. I mean, the details, someone smarter than me can work that out. But I do think that it's something they need to keep looking at because it stung in this one. But yeah, man, this game, wow. For the Chiefs, remember when the Chiefs got figured out for like a couple weeks? That was pretty cool. Remember when everyone was like, just run cover 2 and they won't be able to do anything. That's kind of gone the way. But when you look at this Chiefs team, I think one of the biggest things that's so like striking is the veteran presence they have. They've re-signed all these guys. Remember when they got good, they had Hill, they re-signed, they had Kelsey re-signed, and Mahomes got his $500 million contract, etc. And they really kept this core together at all costs, and it's really paid off because with 13 seconds on the clock, they're down. And if you read kind of what happened in those 2 plays, it wasn't like, Andy Reid or Eric Bieniemy or someone's 20-pound brain schemed up the ultimate play to end all plays. It was literally Mahomes and Kelsey were walking out and they were like, hey, Kelsey was like, hey, I'm going to probably just do whatever looks right. And Mahomes was like, yeah, man, just do it. And I'll just find you, whatever. Like the play they called, Kelsey's route was not what he was supposed to run on the long one he got. That was after the Tyreek Hill catch. So the first play is just, I'm going to throw it to Tyreek Hill and just watch what happens, which that worked pretty well in the whole game. And then the second play was Kelsey saying, hey, I'm not running that route. I'm just going to do whatever. Mahomes lines up. He looks at the defense and he goes, and I think he said like he was screaming, do it, do it, do it. And Kelsey was like, gotcha. And then he just did whatever he thought would work, and it worked. It's amazing that when you have guys that are that good, when they're basically coaching themselves, they're calling their own plays. I mean, that's really in the NFL to win at a consistent level. You got to have guys that do that. I mean, as good as coaches can be, man, when you got guys that can do that, or like your Tom Brady's or making their own plays in the line stuff, like, how do you stop that? I mean, I got a couple ideas for the Bills. I mean, they could have done a lot better in some of these aspects. I think the play calling on defense was just unacceptable at the end of that game. I mean, these super soft, like Charmin triple ply, cover whatever zones. Like, you have the best safety duo in the NFL, and Hyde and Poyer. Maybe not the best, but if you had to rank them top three. I mean, they would be top three easily, right? And you don't trust them at all. Like, you don't even say like, hey guys, we're just going to kind of man up. We're going to maybe bring an extra rusher. We're going to try to show them something, and just someone's got to go make a play. I mean, there's 13 seconds on the clock. I get you're kind of playing field position, but you know who you're playing. You can't just sit back that far. I mean, it's not prevent defense, even against the Chiefs, like that may not work. All they got to do is get in field goal range. We know how good these kickers are nowadays. But yeah, I think where it went wrong for the Bills, there was the two things I really saw in that game was the run game pacing just wasn't. The Bills need to figure that out. I mean, I get you look at the numbers, and it was like, yeah, it worked. Josh Allen did his Josh Allen thing where he ran around, and Singletary, it was okay, but like, it doesn't feel like they have a guy who can come in and pace the offense at times. They need it to. The Chiefs had that. They had Clyde Edwards-Helaire eating up some big yards. McKinnon's been a nice piece for them. I mean, it just felt like they were able to kind of do more where the Bills are a little bit more one-dimensional. And I just feel like that's one of the things with these teams. They just haven't had a guy at running back. There's always really had just someone just kind of thrown in there, just kind of doing whatever. And the Bills, the other thing that really was disappointing, I think, for them is the defensive woes started on the defensive line. Now think about this. Four of their last 6 draft picks have been defensive linemen. They had Greg Rousseau, Carlos Basham, AJ Epineza, and Ed Oliver from start of 2019, the first or the second round. 4 of their 6 picks in the first 2 rounds. Only 2 sacks in the whole day. You look at these other teams that won games, they had a lot more sacks and a lot more defensive pressure. And when you're spending that much quality draft capital, especially when you're a good team and you're picking that back half of the draft, and that's kind of all you can get, because the formula for beating Mahomes can be the same as Brady and all these other guys. You got to get pressure with your guys. You can't blitz them. You can't mid blitz every play. You're going to have to get pressure with your guys. And it's disappointing for Buffalo. They've invested that much in there. They couldn't really get there. And even when they could, these guys are either they're just gassed or they just can't get to Mahomes. And he just scampers away and just does that silly sidearm thing he does and just oops, first down. So I think the big stories coming out of this is going to be the overtime thing, but it's also the quarterback narrative. And I think some people are overreacting to get on that. They're saying, oh, if you don't have Mahomes or Josh Allen, you need to sell your team because you're never going to win anything. And it's like, did you see the other games this weekend? I mean, there were some less than stellar quarterbacks that won. I mean, Jimmy G's moving on, but I people are going to react when you have a game like this. But yeah, overall, man, I think this is probably one of the best playoff games I've ever watched, and it's just got to sting from Buffalo, man. Because really, other than a few little things, I mean, gosh, how much more could you have done if you're Josh Allen? It's just rough.
Yeah. I do have to say up front, I think this is the best round of the playoffs I've ever seen. And I think, you're looking at how you just got finished with Rams Bucks, which we'll get to in moments. And that one, we know the Rams were up by, a hilarious amount of points. And then they end up needing a last second field goal. And you're just like, man, that's 3 straight games that have been won on walk-off field goals. Can't get no better than that. And somehow it did. This may have been the best quarterback game I've ever seen. You're just looking at 2 guys in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen who, in the QBR stats speak for themselves. Mahomes at a 96 QBR, can't get much better than that. Josh Allen 90.3. I mean, he was pretty much flawless. It's just, you just can't do it too much better than that. I'm looking at, you think back to some of the great rivalries. When you talk about quarterbacks going out of the postseason. I don't know if I don't know if Peyton Manning and Tom Brady ever gave us anything like this. And that's no knock against those guys, but but it's a different style game. You got different style quarterbacks. The way these guys can move around is what sets them apart.
That's the big difference. Yeah.
These guys' mobility, and you talk about, and I think it's a valid point, especially with all the draft capital the Bills have invested in some of these pass rushers. But I got to say, if you're a pass rusher on either of these teams, I mean, there's plays where you look at the defense and you look at what they do trying to get pressure, and they seem to almost do everything right. You just can't get them. I mean, both of these guys are wizards moving around in the pocket and just using their linemen as shields at times. They'll do the whole thing where they move one way and then they retreat for 5-10 yards, and they keep moving around, and they got the arm strength to where they could back up 20 more yards and they can still throw a missile down the field. It's just insane. It's insane to watch. But let's go to the overtime discussion, which it's always a hot topic. It was a hot topic before they changed the rules, because it used to be in overtime, whoever wins the coin toss, you go down and kick a field goal and you win. I didn't have a huge issue with that, because it's the same old argument. Hey, get a stop, or maybe win the game in regulation. But I think it's a good compromise to move it to where we are now, to where now, instead of, hey, defense is hard, right? I get it. But guess what? You can give up a field goal now. All you got to do is guard the end zone. And well, Buffalo couldn't even do that. So, but then on top of it, it's the whole regulation point. When Josh Allen threw his last pass of the game, there was 13 seconds on the clock. And I mean, we're live watching this game, and I'm like, this is 13 seconds. How do you do it? And sure enough, well, Mahomes has Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and on the first play, it's pretty simple. They just throw the ball to Tyreek Hill, and he's got a convoy, and he picks up, between 15, 20 yards. And then the next play, which is I just couldn't understand what Buffalo's doing. They're running some soft, I guess you maybe call it a cover three. It ends up being a cover nobody, because Travis Kelce's just by himself, just kind of doing a little seam thing. And, he gets all the way down into, and Harrison Butker have been struggling. We're like, man, because they got the field goal line at like the 40-yard line or whatever. I think you need to go a little closer than that. And they did. They gave him 47, 49, somewhere in there. They gave him that type of field goal. He makes it. You go to overtime. The Chiefs win the toss. They just march right down the field. So if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, and if you're Josh Allen and Gabriel Davis, because his performance was absolutely terrific, all the way down to that. It's hard to keep up with what play was what in that final 2 minutes, but he had that route where just Mike Hughes is going to have to. I don't know what he's going to do with that piece of tape, but
he's still laying there on the field. Yeah, he's still there.
Guy, this poor guy.
He's like covered in snow, and they're just kind of driving the things around him. Yeah,
but I mean, to have the game end that way, I get it. I get the frustration for Bills fans. I get it for Josh Allen and some of those guys who showed up to play on offense. But as you say, and I think you said it correctly, this is a two-sided game. Defensive players get paid too. I know it's hard to play defense, but it's not. Look, it's not just the overtime, guys. The Buffalo, and I'm gonna tell you, I picked the Bills to win this game, and a lot of it had to do with the Bills' defense. I was told, and the stat sheet reflects it, this was one of the best defenses in football. I'd say top 5 bare minimum. And Sean McDermott's done a fantastic job, really building this defense up they don't have a lot of really big superstar names. Their best player, Tre'Davious White's been out for an eternity now, much of the season. So, but they still do it. And they beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They held them down pretty good, if my memory serves me correctly. So not only is it, you can look at the overtime drive and like, oh, we didn't get the ball back. Well, okay. But you had the whole game, and you gave up 450 yards in regulation. You didn't stop the run either. Edwards-Helaire, he's running for all types of yards. Mahomes, that was a huge issue. When they did everything all right when they did everything right on defense, Mahomes would just scramble for days. The Buffalo Bills defense just did not do enough. All you had to do was get one more stop than you did, and I don't think you got that many stops. So it's just one of those things where I think it's just consistent and it's just kind of appropriate for where we are just overall. When something happens, to a team or a player, instead of finding a mirror and taking a good hard look and saying, "Oh, I wasn't good enough," now we just got to blame somebody else. Now it's the rule. The rules is messed up. Last week, the Cowboys. And by the way, I'm loving the memes where it's 13 seconds. That's all Mahomes needed, and that took a shorter amount of time than Dak Prescott's quarterback draw and them to whine about the refs being in the way. I'm loving it. But again, just like the Bills, look, you get a stop. The Cowboys, they want to cry and blame refs and blame everybody but themselves. The Bills, to a similar degree, that's what we're looking at. That's just emblematic of where we are. But you look, Buffalo, you get what that fan base has been through and what those players have been through. They haven't been, to a Super Bowl, almost 30 years now since they lost 4 in a row. They finally get into some back of respectability. They're a contender. Josh Allen is big time. We can say that. But look, it's a problem. It's what every quarterback and every team in the AFC gonna have to deal with for a long time because it's Patrick Mahomes. And this was a game where I thought the Bills could get him, and he played as well as you can play. And that's really what this comes down to. This is and I do have to say this as well. This is the type of game between Mahomes and Josh Allen. This is what we want to see in a Patrick Mahomes Lamar Jackson matchup. That's what we want. I just have to say that. This ain't about Lamar Jackson at all, but this is the type of stuff we're looking at. And I got to say, we're going to see Mahomes and Burrow again. That was a great game in Week 17, I believe it was. Last time, the Chiefs had won 10 of 11 or something crazy. Mm-hmm. But the crop of AFC quarterbacks, and really, throughout the league, but I think the AFC in particular, the young quarterbacks. Oh, yeah. We're going to see. We may not get. It's hard to top this game, but you're going to see a lot more games like this which come down to the wire and just exciting, flooring finishes. Especially, and the biggest thing, as I said earlier, the way these guys move around and keep plays alive. It's hard to play defense.
Yeah, just one final point, just to kind of give credit where it's due. Josh Allen he was not up there whining like Dak Prescott was. He said, look,
right.
I mean, the rules are what they are. We got to do what we got to do. I think a couple of their other players were kind of like, well, we could have, but I'd say Josh Allen was at least he was like, hey, being a leader, was like, listen, we just didn't do it.
That's
that's what you
right.
were getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. The Cowboys definitely is more their players and coaches. The Bills issue is probably less about the Bills and more about just everybody that watched the game that just didn't like it, and probably we can probably say that they just don't want to see the Chiefs keep winning. That's where we're at. That's where all that comes in. Yeah, that's a great point.